trilogy, which was completed shortly after his death, but we cover him in Paris, preparing for an exhibition of lithographs at a small gallery there, and going through Paris. Part of the Oxfording metaphor is that the bull or the ox is the symbol of enlightenment, and you realize your hunger for this, and you search for it, you discover it, you tame it, you capture it, you ride it back, you let it go, and there is one panel of nothingness, and the last one is very wonderfully called The Man in the Marketplace, in which you have let go of all these attachments and that you are able to sort of move through the marketplace with bliss-bestowing gestures, that flowers grow and children smile, and that was very much Mr. Siegel in his last days, and so we literally filmed him in the marketplaces, but also the other public spaces of Paris, and spoke to him in and around this exhibition. And so very much the question of nothingness is part of that film, although I think you can see it here. Having not seen any of these films, these first two films before, I'd love to have you begin the conversation, Rinpoche.
Well, as Ken mentioned, I've not seen any of the movies, and really I was not familiar with William Siegel's life story or his work at all. Before, I was told that just a few days ago, actually, I realized that William Siegel's work was going to be shown tonight, and then we're going to have some discussions involving his life and his teachings as well, I suppose. But watching the movies, a few things struck me, particularly sort of things that he said that I thought resonated sort of classic Buddhist ideas like nowness, silence, luminosity, he mentioned, which is also very important in Buddhism, especially in Tibetan Buddhism. Things like that really, I thought, really sort of showed that he did have a very sort of deep commitment to Buddhist philosophy and practices. And of course, I mean, he was doing Zen practice in a Christian monastery. That must be some kind of koan in action, something like that, I don't know. That left me a bit baffling and like trying to work it out, but then I said, well, stop conceptualizing. So,
well, I always found that this Jewish man from the Bronx should be meditating in a Catholic cathedral in France, practicing Buddhism, was a wonderful reminder that the icons and the forms of our devotions are often the least important and the most ephemeral, and that there is, in the end, such a large sympathy that we share in common with these initial impulses to know who I am, to search, to have an innate attraction to the aesthetic, to realize that it comes down to presence, to silence, to the luminosity that you reference. I think also another word that's so key for me in conversations is potentiality. And when one sees the potentiality in a thing, an object, or a being, and what are the circumstances that permits that potentiality to reveal itself to you.
Yes, and also really from watching that film, when William was talking about being in the now and paying attention to things and so on, and yet at the same time, sort of, in a way, I suppose he was talking about mystery and what you don't know, that sense of emptiness, silence, which he constantly sort of kept on going back to, the importance of silence and things like that. Well, that, of course, is very Buddhist, and in many ways, I think people misunderstand what is meant by emptiness or nothingness, because they think emptiness or nothingness means non-existence. And of course, in Buddhism, it means anything but that. The other thing that really struck me about what William Siegel was saying was the idea of potentiality. Is that potentiality is what emptiness and nothingness also represent. The indeterminacy, where all kinds of things are possible. Things that are not yet in existence could actually come into existence because of nothingness, because of emptiness. And so silence, you need silence for noise even. Even the noises that you don't want to hear. I mean, to produce music, of course, you need silence, especially, the audience demanded of, sort of that fact. I mean, you have to keep silent. You don't make noise when other people are up there on the stage, whose job it is to do that. But anyway, I don't want to go into too much of that, but you need silence, and if you want to paint something, you need an empty canvas. Canvas has to be empty. And if you want to plot of land, the land has to be empty, cleared of everything, so on and so forth. So in Buddhism, then there's the idea that emptiness makes everything possible. This very famous Mahayana philosopher by the name of Nagarjuna actually said that due to emptiness, everything is possible. Without emptiness, nothing would be possible. He said that in a very famous work called Mula Madhyamika Karika, his sort of magnum opus on the concept of emptiness. He says that. So, because of emptiness, everything is possible. Without emptiness, nothing would be possible. So without emptiness, William Siegel would have not been a good businessman. He would have not been a good painter. He would have not been a good spiritual practitioner, so on and so forth. And even within ourselves, we become what we are because of that potentiality that exists there, as he also pointed out.
There's a wonderful moment in the first film when he comes on camera abruptly and says, "Forget everything."
Yes, yes.
And I love that. It was sort of shocking, and in the context of these films, which are quiet and sort of outwardly contemplative, it's a sort of dramatic kind of the equivalent, I guess, of a car chase in other movies. But when he said "forget everything," there's something nice, and there's also something in Vézelay that takes place when at the very end, he begins to suggest that it's not Vézelay, and of course it is not Vézelay. It's not these temples of whatever faith they might be that are close to heaven, that are built with the efforts of centuries and devotion and attention. It's really what we are inside and how we, as he said, make the Vézelays in us, and how that we replicate the kind of silence, the emptying necessary. And it was funny, I have not seen the films in a few months, and I was absolutely positive that I would hear the word nothing or emptiness in the films, and it may be that it's in the third film, but they're not there, but they're everywhere in these films, because these are all blueprints. It's not important that he was an artist in any way. It's not important that he traveled to Vézelay in any way, but they are essential to him getting at something that you've been speaking about so eloquently, that drew us to him. And it was interesting to be able to have a friendship with a human being that was someone to whom people might travel around the world to have a few minutes to speak to, and have the great luxury of spending time with him in a casual friendship that permitted us, I think, to even have the opportunity to make the films.
Yes, yes. I mean, I really found the movies very interesting, because I think he was saying really some very interesting things. One thing was when he was talking about paying attention and things like that. You see, he was also sort of talking about paying attention in such a way that you're not just paying attention to what is immediately there. Of course, that is true. That's what you're supposed to do, as he was saying. Normally, as Gurdjieff himself said, and apparently William was a great devotee of Gurdjieff and Zen Buddhism and so on. And one of the main things that Gurdjieff used to talk about was that we are always asleep, which is sort of reiterating what the Buddha had also said, that we are also sort of in a state of somnambulance, somnambulance, sorry. My English is not very good,
It's
excellent.
It's excellent.
So I have to apologize. So we're all in a state of somnambulance, so groping in the dark. So therefore, we need to become more conscious and pay more attention in life. And so therefore, we have to pay attention to everything that we experience in daily life. But just simply paying attention to what is presently at hand or something of that nature, just simply by paying attention to things in itself would not really sort of make us become awakened. The point is, by paying attention to what we experience, we should try to see the context, where it's all coming from. If you like, the mystery behind the phenomenon. I think William Siegel, somewhere I read, you used to be very fond of talking about the nominal. In any case, the hidden reality behind the appearance of things. So if it's not the case that you want to realize the hidden reality, so then you decide to ignore what you actually experience on a daily basis, because you think this is all illusory, it's ephemeral, transient, lacking in substance. So forget that. I'm on a bigger search, talking about search and whatnot. I'm on a bigger search, bigger mission, and at the end of my journey, I'm going to realize this incredible thing called ultimate reality or the absolute or whatever name you want to give it. Excuse me. And everything that one is experiencing. But people like William and as other Buddhist masters have said, if we do that, we've gotten hold of the stick from the wrong end. We've got, yes. Because it is through paying attention to everything that we experience, we unlock the mystery of life, mystery of what is really real and so on. What is real becomes revealed through what we already experience, not in spite of it or despite of it. I think,
yes.
Do you think that is...
Very much so. It's that cucumber. He
right.
dances
yes,
around
yes,
in
exactly.
his hand so well.
I saw that one, yes.
And in the marketplace, it's not, we tend to think that these pursuits must be something other,
yes.
that it cannot be an aspect of my ordinary life. Here he says, as you're watching the most formalized rituals of the Catholic Church, he's talking about an equally important ritual of drinking coffee in the morning.
Right. Yes.
And it's a liberating experience that we have had to invent so much scaffolding and false work around this rather simple, but as we understand, as we go for extraordinarily difficult thing of freeing ourselves, of emptying ourselves, not of the world, but of our own commentary about the world. And that silence that he speaks about, it goes even into the next film, where the loudness of Paris is all around, a huge contemporary city where people are distracted to the